Did you know that cowboys had baths once a month? If that? Welcome to the true Wild West, where reality is stranger, dumber, and weirder than fiction. Forget the gorgeous gunslingers and stern sheriffs of Hollywood. The frontier was rife with unusual rules, bizarre habits, and personalities who would make your local town drunk appear like a scholar. Prepare for 47 mind-blowing facts that reveal the Wild West wasn't just wild, it was also absurd. You will not believe what made the cut. Let's get into the first one. 1. Frontier towns had strict gun control. Wait, you thought the Wild West was all pistols at dawn and saloons full of trigger-happy drunks? Think again. Towns like Dodge City, Tombstone, and Deadwood had tougher firearms prohibitions than we do now. Visitors were obliged to check their firearms with the sheriff, much like a Wild West coat check, but for Colts. You'd be given a token and able to pick up your piece when you leave. So much for every cowboy strolling into a saloon strapped and ready to duel. The Wild West was less Red Dead Redemption and more gun-free zone, partner. 2. Oregon's racist Lash Law. This one is a stomach hit. In 1844, Oregon outlawed slavery and free black people. A legislation drafted by Peter Burnett, who later became California's first governor, stated that any enslaved person transported to Oregon would be released after 3 years but subsequently prohibited them from remaining. What if they didn't leave? They'd get whipped. Just for existing, you get between 20 and 39 lashes. This ordinance was really executed, effectively transforming Oregon into a white-only territory. They actually said, "You're free, but not here." So yes, Oregon put the Oregon in Get Out. 3. Cowboy was originally an insult. Nowadays, referring to someone as a cowboy implies that they are rugged, bold, and most likely smell like leather. But in the 1870s, that was fighting talk. In regions like Arizona, cowboy referred to cattle thieves, hooligans, and straight-up criminals. What about the notorious shootout at the OK Corral? It wasn't lawmen fighting bad guys. It was lawmen versus a gang known as the Cowboys. In 1881, a newspaper described them as infinitely worse than ordinary robbers. So, if you had approached Wyatt Earp back then and yelled, "Hey, cowboy," you would most likely have been punched. 4. Cowboys wore derby hats, not 10 gallons. Forget the Hollywood Stetson. Real cowboys wore derby hats, also known as bowlers, rather than wide-brimmed cowboy hats. Why? Because they stayed on in the wind, didn't flip around, and were simply functional. Cowboys, gunslingers, and ranch hands can be seen wearing bowlers, top hats, and even sombreros in historical photographs. What about that slick Stetson? It didn't catch on until the late 1800s when it was dubbed the boss of the plains. So, if you truly want to visualize Wyatt Earp correctly, ditch the cowboy hat and give him a derby and a smile. 5. Buffalo chips, frontier fuel of choice. Are there no trees, no firewood? Not a problem. Just collect some good old buffalo dung. Dried bison dung, also known as buffalo chips, was the prairie pioneer's best friend. Families used it to prepare dinner, remain warm, and very likely test their gag reflexes. But believe it or not, it burned slowly and hot and didn't smell very horrible, supposedly. Still, it wasn't any child's favorite chore. Ma said, "Go gather poop for the fire." Frontier life was literally lit by feces. 6. The Emperor of the United States. Step aside Napoleon, meet Emperor Norton I of San Francisco. In 1859, Joshua Norton, a bankrupt merchant, declared himself Emperor of the United States and later Protector of Mexico, since why not? Rather than laughing him off, San Franciscans embraced the humor. He wore royal uniforms, issued decrees, and printed his own money, which some establishments did accept. When he died in 1880, 10,000 people attended his funeral. That's correct. No power, no army, just vibrations. Nevertheless, Emperor Norton ruled the city's heart. 7. Judge Roy Bean's beer-soaked court. Roy Bean, a judge, bartender, and all-around character, held court at his Texas saloon. Bean, also known as The law west of the Pecos had a unique approach to justice. When a dead guy was discovered with $40 and a gun, Bean fined the corpse $40 for possessing a hidden weapon. Problem solved. In another case, he let a killer go because Texas law did not explicitly protect Chinese workers. Justice was served with a whiskey chaser. Appeals? Good luck. Judge Bean was usually correct, or at least too inebriated to care. 8. The outlaw who shot a man for snoring. John Wesley Hardin was a famed gunfighter and an even more terrible sleeper. In 1871, while staying at a hotel, he was kept awake by the man in the adjacent room who snorted like a buzzsaw. Hardin yelled. No response. He acted rationally and shot through the wall. When the snoring stopped, he calmly returned to bed. The next morning, the man was discovered dead. Later, Hardin admitted, I only killed one man for snoring, just one. Sleep apnea never had a chance in the Old West. 9. Naked Cowboy Rides Again. Clay Allison was a gunman with no shame and, allegedly, no clothes. One day, he galloped into Mobeetie, Texas, absolutely nude save for his pistol belt. Yes, birthday suit and boots. The town was scandalized, particularly among the ladies, who implored the sheriff to arrest him. The sheriff was held at gunpoint and forced to drink whiskey in the saloon until he could no longer stand. That's correct. Clay arrested the sheriff. 10. Dentist Payback, Frontier Style. Clay Allison strikes again, this time with a horror story for dentists. Following a grueling cattle drive, he saw a dentist who nervously yanked the wrong tooth. A big mistake. Allison went, stewed in misery, and then returned with a revolver, forcing the dentist into his own chair. He ripped one of the dentist's teeth out with forceps. An eye for an eye? Try exchanging a tooth for another tooth. 11th. Blackbart, the polite poet bandit, a stagecoach robber who uses please and thank you. Meet Blackbart, true name Charles E. Bowles, an Englishman who abandoned tea time for robberies. Between 1875 and 1883, he robbed 28 stagecoaches in Northern California on foot. There were no gunshots or violence, just him dressed in a heavy coat, a flour sack mask, and an unloaded shotgun. 12. The Coffeeville Caper catastrophe. The Dalton gang wanted to go big, like rob 2 banks at once, huge. In 1892, they walked into Coffeeville, Kansas, with fake beards and a bad plan. Rob 2 banks in broad daylight. What about the locals? Yes, they weren't having it. Townspeople recognized them right away, seized their weapons, and turned Main Street into a combat zone. Storekeepers, the liverymen, and even the town marshal joined in. Within 15 minutes, 4 of the 5 gang members had died. 13. The outlaw who lost his head, literally. Ketchum may have carried off rail robberies, but his worst failure occurred at the gallows. In 1901, he became the only person in New Mexico to be killed for train robbery, and it went horribly wrong. See, Blackjack was a large dude, and the hangman used a rope designed for an average guy. His head sank along with the trapdoor. Yup. It popped right off in front of a terrified audience. His shrouded head rolled in the dirt, and his body collapsed elsewhere. 14. Shoes made of outlaw skin. Do you think fashion has gotten odd recently? Try this. Big Nose George, an outlaw from Wyoming, was lynched in 1881. Nobody claimed the body, so a local doctor took it for science. What followed was straight-up horror film material. The doctor skinned George's chest and thighs and had the hide made into shoes, complete with beautiful nipple skin. As if that weren't enough, he wore those shoes to his gubernatorial inauguration in 1893. His skull became an ashtray, and his brain wound up in a jar. 15. The Bloody Benders, America's first serial killer family. Move over. Horror films. The Benders of Kansas were real-life nightmares in bonnets and aprons. In the early 1870s, they operated a small prairie inn where visitors checked in but rarely checked out. Guests were seated over a trapdoor, hit with a hammer, lowered into the cellar, and buried in the orchard. When people realized what was going on, the Benders departed, leaving only blood-stained floors and shallow graves. 16. Colorado Cannibalism, the Alfred Packer story. Although the Donner Party popularized cannibalism, Alfred Packer made it his own. In 1874, he and 5 miners became lost in the Rockies. Packer was the only one who survived, and he appeared unusually chubby. He ultimately acknowledged to eating the others, but blamed one of them for killing them first. The jurors did not buy it. According to legend, the judge yelled, "You ate 5 Democrats, you son of a BMA!" Packer served for 15 years and became Colorado's most infamous man-eater. 17th. Legend of the Red-Haired Cannibal Giants. The Paiute tribe has a strange narrative about their forefathers fighting red-haired giant cannibals known as the Stsons. These 10-foot monsters apparently devoured anybody they could catch. Eventually, the Paiutes claim they captured the last of them in a cave and burned them alive. Isn't that a scary myth? Archaeologists discovered ancient tools, as well as reportedly gigantic bones, in Nevada's Lovelock Cave in 1911, however. Most scientists attribute it to tall competitors and mummy hair turning red. However, it may be best to avoid camping in Nevada caverns. 18. Wild West, Weekend at Bernie's. Long before Instagram, frontiersmen had a gruesome method of gloating about catching outlaws, posing with their dead bodies. After the Dalton gang was annihilated in Coffeeville, their bullet-riddled bodies were lined up for a town portrait. Families brought their children to pose next to the dead, as if they were carnival prizes. Is Billy the Kid? Propped up in a chair. Jesse James? His body traveled the town like a rock star. Back then, a body was essentially a cowboy's resume. 19th. Buffalo Bill's bungling actors. Buffalo Bill. Cody was a showman without a doubt. His Wild West performance featured authentic cowboys, Native Americans, Annie Oakley's sharpshooting, and thrilling exploits. But what happened when he tried indoor stage productions with actual frontiersmen as actors? Total calamity. Picture grizzled cowboys bumbling through situations with no script, timing, or idea what they were doing. It was like seeing a bar brawl in slow motion, with poor lighting. Still, audiences adored it because, well, it was authentic and chaotic, like the West. 20. Pearl Hart. Lady Bandit and Queen of Trickery. You've heard of Billy the Kid, but meet Pearl Hart, one of the Wild West's few female stagecoach thieves. In 1899, she nicely held up a coach in Arizona with a handgun, claiming she needed the money for her ailing mother. She even returned a few dollars for their trouble. When she was apprehended, Pearl became a media favorite, beguiling reporters dressed in buckskin and petticoat. But here's the kicker. Pearl unexpectedly fell pregnant while in prison. Rather than confront the scandal, Arizona pardoned her. She briefly performed in a Wild West show as herself. Pearl did more than simply rob passengers, she robbed history. 21. Elmer McCerts' postmortem career. Elmer McCerts was a nasty bandit in life but a legend after death. Nobody claimed his body after he was shot while attempting a train heist in 1911. So the Undertaker embalmed him and began charging visitors a nickel to view the bandit who wouldn't give up. Carnivals took him in, and Elmer's corpse traveled for decades, passed around like a Halloween decoration. People forgot he even existed until 1976, when a film crew inadvertently fractured his mannequin arm and discovered a human bone. 22. The stagecoach whip who was a woman. Charlie Parkhurst was a legend behind the wheel, a one-eyed, cigar-smoking stagecoach driver who handled horses with authority. Known as Six-Horse Charlie, he spit tobacco, gambled, and could outwit any man on a mountain road. However, when Charlie died in 1879, the coroner made a startling discovery. Charlie was physiologically female. Born Charlotte Parkhurst, she had been masquerading as a man for decades, including voting in 1868, possibly the first woman to do so in the United States. Talk about a microphone drop. Her narrative sounds unbelievable, yet it's the West's real-life Mulan moment. 23. The Not-So-Okay Corral. You've seen the theatrical reenactments, with dusty streets, slow-motion duels, and squinting eyes. But what about the famed shootout at the OK Corral? It lasted 30 seconds. On October 26, 1881, the Herp Brothers and Doc Holliday confronted the Clanton gang in a vacant lot, not the actual corral. Around 30 shots were fired, 3 people perished, and then, poof, it was over. What about the courtroom drama that followed? Much longer than the gunfight itself. It became iconic because of Hollywood, but, in fact, you'd miss it if you blinked. 24th. First in crime, Indiana Jones the West. Everyone thinks of the Wild West as the origin of outlaws, but what about the first major railroad and bank robberies? Totally Eastern. In 1866, the Reno Gang of Indiana carried out the first moving train heist, stealing $13,000. In 1863, Edward Green shot a young bank clerk and stole $5,000 in Massachusetts. So much for Cowboys coming first. The frontier outlaws may have glorified it, but the East Coast had already advanced 2 levels in criminal ingenuity. It's similar to stating, you guys can have the horses. We've got crime down to a science already. 25th. Murder rates and mayhem, myth versus reality. Western movies depict the frontier as a daily carnage. The truth is, murder statistics portray a different narrative. Sure, Dodge City had 165 homicides per 100,000 people at its peak, but it is fewer than other major towns today. Wild Bill was killed in Deadwood, although most years, no one died. Even Wyatt Earp participated in only one actual gunfight, the OK Corral. What about towns like Abilene? After they prohibited guns, shootings fell to 0 for entire seasons. The West was nasty and lawless, but not the continual gunfight that Hollywood loves to portray. Most of the time, it was bizarre rather than nasty. 26. Fisticuffs were legal duels. Forget firearms at dawn. The Wild West was more about bare-knuckle brawls. Dueling with guns? That was for affluent Southern males. In locations like early Texas, if 2 males had beef, they just fought it out behind the tavern. As long as both parties consented, it was considered mutual combat. Sheriffs might even monitor to keep things civil. One Texas statute prohibited official duels with weapons, but not throwing hands. So instead of dramatic confrontations, it was, take off your hat, let's settle this with fists. The winner received bragging rights. 27. The US Camel Corps, camels, in Texas. No, this is not a work of fiction. It was a real-life experiment conducted by the United States Army in the 1850s. With arid terrain to navigate, someone reasoned that camels might be a better option than mules. Camels pulled more, drank less, and ate cactus like champs. But soldiers despised them. The camels spit, stank, and scared the horses. When the Civil War broke out, the project was dropped. Some camels were sold to circuses, while others strayed out into the wild. For decades, people continued to spot rogue camels. The last one in Texas was caught in 1941. 28. The Red Ghost of Arizona. In the 1880s, Arizona received a strange visitor, a gigantic red camel with a headless rider. People reported it crushed a woman, left hoofprints, and then vanished. They named it the Red Ghost. One cowboy attempted to rope it and claimed the beast had a skeleton strapped to its back. This scary folklore most likely originated with the abandoned United States Camel Corps. 29th. Cowboys and Aliens, 1890s edition. Cowboys had been sharing stories about alien encounters long before Roswell. In 1896, Colonel H.G. Shaw of California claimed to have witnessed 7-foot-tall, monkey-footed aliens attempting to take him into an airship. Newspapers went wild. A year later, in Aurora, Texas, locals reported that a UFO crashed into a windmill and exploded, leaving behind a little humanoid body that was buried in the village cemetery. People referred to it as the Martian. While today's skeptics blame frauds or bizarre balloon experiments, many pioneers believed aliens were visiting. Who needs Hollywood when the Old West was already telling fantastic sci-fi stories over campfires? 30. Tarantula juice and coffin varnish. Western whiskey wasn't simply potent, it was borderline fatal. Without food safety standards, saloons laced their drinks with anything, including tobacco juice, turpentine, ammonia, and strychnine. Yes, poison. Taste? Not the aim. The handmade beverages featured names like tarantula juice, coffin varnish, and stagger soup. One swig could cause you to hallucinate or go blind. Cowboys joked that after drinking the fake thing, you'd need a real whiskey chaser just to get through it. Taos lightning, for example, was so powerful that it felt like being blasted with electricity. So, the next time you romanticize saloon scenes, remember that a shot back then could have sent you directly to next week. 31. Gamblers. The West's first celebs. Forget gunslingers. Gamblers were the true Wild West stars. In locations like Tombstone and Dodge City, card sharks like Doc Holliday and Lottie Dino were revered as superstars. They were more than simply poker players. They were also entertainers, economic engines, and, on occasion, outlaws. Gamblers were showy, well-dressed, and frequently sneaky, gaining millions and leaving before their victims could respond. However, in many regions, gambling was legalized and respected, as legitimate as being a doctor or priest. 32. Please don't shoot the piano player. Only in the Wild West would a saloon have to display a notice that reads, "Please do not shoot the piano player. He is doing his best." But it occurred. Oscar Wilde even claimed to have seen it in Colorado during his US tour. Imagine a poor guy tickling the ivories while half-drunk cowboys yell, fight, or shoot in the air. According to one Tombstone account, a pianist continued to play until a bullet crushed his collarbone. Respect. That sign became iconic and was reproduced on postcards for tourists. So the next time your show isn't going well, be grateful that no one is packing heat while you're on stage. 33. Cowboy boot origins. High heels with purpose. Have you ever wondered why cowboy boots have high heels? It was about survival, not fashion. The 2-inch heel helped keep a rider's foot in the stirrup, preventing it from slipping through and dragging them if thrown. The long shafts protected legs from prickly undergrowth and snake bites, while the pointed toe allowed for swift entry into stirrups. Even the beautiful stitching served a purpose. It strengthened the leather to prevent drooping. Cowboys wore high heels before it was fashionable, and they didn't stop there. Many boots had stars, hearts, or bespoke inlays. If you're going to trudge through cow pies, you might as well do so in style. 34. Stagecoach tickets. Push or ride. Traveling by stagecoach in the 1800s? You should have bought first class. Because ticket classes were more than just about comfort. They determined who had to get out and push. Yes, first class sat tight no matter what. Second graders had to get out and walk uphill. Third class? Out of the bus, pushing that beast through the muck. Wells Fargo even made this an official policy. It became an Old West joke. Pay less, push more. 35. The Great Train Crash Stunt. In 1896, a railroad booster named William Crush had a spectacularly idiotic idea. Deliberately wreck 2 speeding trains for attention. And everyone loved it. They created a complete phony town named Crush, Texas, specifically for the event. More than 40,000 people showed up, some with picnic baskets, to witness the destruction. The 2 trains were filled with steam and charged at each other like enraged bulls. When they collided, there was chaos. The explosion was far bigger than expected. Debris crashed into the crowd, wounding hundreds and killing others. What's the moral of the story? Do not mix trains with marketing stunts. Still legendary. 36. Stsons Hat, the original multi-tool. Have you ever heard of a hat that could be used as a water bucket, snow shield, fire fan, or fashion statement? That was a Stetson. When John B. Stetson created the Boss of the Plains in 1865, cowboys realized it was brilliant. Made of beaver fur felt, it was robust, waterproof, and could hold roughly a gallon of water for your horse, not just you. Tilt it for shade, flip it for snow, wave it to a friend, or slam it down on Sunday to seem great at church. 37th. Women won the West, at least in Wyoming. While women in New York were still wearing corsets and unable to vote, women in Wyoming were already voting for sheriffs in 1870. Yes, the Wild West was remarkably enlightened, at least in terms of voting rights. Wyoming became the first state to provide women the right to vote in 1869. 38. Mail order mayhem. Imagine courting someone via mail and then traveling 1,000 miles to marry them without seeing them. Welcome to the Wild West version of Tinder. With men outnumbering women 20 to 1 in places like gold camps, matrimonial agencies arose to transfer city girls west to meet single bachelors. 39th. Opium Dens and Frontier Pharmacy. Do you think the Wild West was only about alcohol and gunfights? Consider this. It was also a pharmacy, but not a healthy one. Opium became a mainstay thanks to Chinese immigration and Civil War leftovers. 40. When nature fights back. Cactus cat and jackalope. The Wild West was teeming with monsters, some genuine and some very much not. Cowboys like spinning tails, especially after a few beers. 41. Lynch Law was quick law. Forget trials. In the Wild West, justice was often delivered quickly and without a judge. Vigilantes were like your town's HOA, but without the chill. 42. Dead man's hand. Thanks, Wild Bill. Have you ever been dealt 2 aces and 2 eights in poker and felt a chill? The dead man's hand, courtesy of Wild Bill Hickok. On August 2nd, 1876 in Deadwood. 43. The Herp Brothers aimed shotguns, not pistols. Wyatt Earp and his gang weren't dressing up as cowboys. In reality, they favored shotguns. Shotguns that have been sawed off are large and filthy. 44. Saloon Etiquette 101. Believe it or not, saloons had rules, and they were unusual. Check your guns at the door. No spitting on the stove is gross but typical. Some signs got creative. 45. Hangovers got names. The West did more than just drink heavily. They also called the ache afterward. Hungover cowboys claimed they had the prairie bell ringing, or rode hard and put up wet. 46. Mining camp oddities. Mining camps were complete pandemonium. Gold turned people insane. In Virginia City, 1 egg cost $1. Champagne? $40 per bottle. One person cooked coffee through a sock and drank it. Another wealthy miner acquired a bear cub to impress women. It didn't work once the bear grew up. 47. This is funny. Dying words. Some people died as dramatically as they lived. Doc Holliday, dying in bed, not in a shootout, looked down at his bare feet and laughed. This is funny. What's with the irony? He anticipated dying wearing boots. Outlaw Johnny Ringo's dying words? Hallucinations. So there you have it. 47 facts that illustrate the Wild West wasn't just wild, but strange. From poop-powered stoves to headless outlaws and polite robbers, history's dusty track is full of unexpected twists. If you thought Hollywood had become strange, the true frontier responded, "Hold my whiskey." If you like this video, please make sure you subscribe to this channel for more amazing videos like this.